This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. Magazine publisher and entrepreneur Judith Mancini is sharing captivating conversations with experts in their field about the latest trends in our ever-changing world to help you become healthy, wealthy, and wise. Judith Mancini Today will spark your interest and inspire you to lead your best life ever. And now, here's Judith.
Judith Mancini Today is sponsored by Basic Brands, Inc., providing the highest quality specialty products in the natural food industry. Visit basicbrandsinc.com and enter JMT15 for your 15% discount on your first order, including their best-selling Vitamin E ointment, which helps restore moisture and elasticity to your skin. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in today to Judith Mancini Today. Do you know why I call it Judith Mancini Today? Because I have been on this radio station for many years, and I took a hiatus of about 2.5 years and came back. So my previous show was Dishing with Judith, where I did a lot of different kinds of interviews with people, business ladies, business moguls, men and women, and a lot of celebrities. So if you want to see any of those old episodes, they don't have video on them, but they do have audio, and they're on iHeart and Spotify. So look them up. They're fun. They're great fun. So here I am, and that's why it's called Judith Mancini Today, because now I'm a little bit older, maybe a little bit wiser, I would hope. Aging like fine wine, I definitely hope. So we're going to start today, and we're going to talk about what are you doing now that you're a big girl or boy. And the description of what I'm talking about is reevaluate, relaxation, rejuvenate, rediscover, reinvent, rejoice, rinse and repeat. But before we start, I want to just say a few words about what's happening on November 8th. You know, inflation is at record highs. It's up so much. It's 8.2. And at this time last year, it was 5 something. So it's gone up. Gas here in California, and a lot of this is due to the taxes that Governor Newsom puts on, our taxes. You wouldn't even believe it. If you live in the East Coast or Midwest or the South, you guys are getting the $3.22 a gallon. I'd be grateful for that, because our gas is now $6.79 where we live in Southern California. It's always higher. They always say it's because of the summertime reserves and this and that and everything else. But I'm not in favor of tapping into our reserve, our emergency reserve supply of fuel gas. What if we need this to protect our country? This is a very bad idea. My opinion is we need to go back like Europe and some of the other countries, India, China, fossil fuels. I agree, we're polluting, but not very much. Our product is much cleaner and much less pollution than any of the other countries. And we need to go to being a green country with less fossil fuel over a period of years, not immediately. Why don't you study it? I was in the oil and gas business at one time when I lived in Pittsburgh, and I learned so much, especially with natural gas. You can't even see a well coming out of the ground like the ones that pump the oil in different places like Signal Hill in Los Angeles. you need to study it. And if you want to be able to balance your own budget, you better hope that the gas goes down in price, particularly here in California. And California, part of this tax that's over 54 cents a gallon now in California, why don't you find out what that money's being used for? Okay. So the ballot is coming up on November 8th for the general elections for the midterm. And it's all over the country, not just in one particular state. We're looking at doing local governments, even school boards, all the way up to governors, senators, and congresspeople. So I want you, whichever party you're in, I want you to study what these people stand for. And is it somebody that it doesn't really care so much about inflation and a recession? Is it somebody who doesn't care about racism? We're having a terrible, terrible problem with this in Los Angeles. It's so nasty, I can't even believe it. It's disgusting what the Los Angeles Council has been saying, and they should all be fired. That's my only political point I want to make. Just disgusting. So I want you to study your candidates, see what they stand for, but look at their records and see how they voted, maybe not just what they're saying. We don't want people that are capable of speaking to say stupid things like defund the police. The police are good. We need the police to maintain law and order. And we have the highest crime rate all over the country now that we've ever had, the worst inflation we've ever had. No energy, energy costs are skyrocketing, but there's many other things that are impacted on the ballots. Like here in California, we're voting for the right to gamble on the Indian reservations and other places because the Native American people have been granted land and access to gambling. That's their business. And we have people encroaching on it from out of state and things like that. So you want to study the platforms and what people stand for. That's November 8th. My other tip is, why don't you take a check from your checking account? I know people don't write checks so much anymore, but why don't you this time? Write a check to yourself for $500. Yeah, put it in an envelope, address it to yourself, and put it in a mailbox. You don't think that's such a great idea? You might lose $500. Somebody else might take it and change the name on the check, which should be to you, but it's to somebody else, and they go and cash it, and you've lost $500. Well, it's even worse if you put a ballot in a mailbox. You need to put it in person voting. Now, if you can't do that, I would suggest you put it in one of the lock boxes right in front of the voting area. If you're incapable of getting to the voting place, then call somebody, call the Republican women in the area or the Democrat women in the area, whomever you are and how you're registered, you get help. Get your son or daughter to take you. Get a friend to take you if you can't drive anymore. We need your vote. We need you to speak out for people who will stand up for your constitutional rights, and even all the way down to your school board. Yes, you can vote to take these people out of the school board so that they stop teaching our kids that everybody should have their gender changed from boy to girl or girl to boy. They are too young to make this decision. It's a dangerous operation. More and more people who have had the physical operations are changing their minds as they get into their 20s. They said it's caused them pain. It's caused them emotional distress. It's not my position to decide what to do, but it's not the school's position to be encouraging this or saying, don't tell your parents. That's wrong. Sex education in school is starting way too young. Yeah, I'm a little bit older than most people, but most of my audience will remember this. We had health classes, but I don't believe we had health classes until the 7th grade. And that's junior high, middle school. And that's when we learned about women and menstruation, but we were separated from the boys so that we wouldn't be embarrassed. And I assumed that the boys had sex education at the same time we were having our education, and they were told about different things. So I am totally against this sex education starting in the 2nd grade or kindergarten. It's ridiculous, and it's causing many problems at home, at school, with the kids, mental disparity, depression. I have to tell you what the school board allowed out here in Southern California. It's so embarrassing. At one of the local schools, they allowed a 7th grader to masturbate in front of the mixed school class. Boys and girls watched this kid do this. I was so shocked when I heard this. I mean, I'm without words. So if that's what's going on in schools, you better check out your school board. And instead of risking the chance anymore to get arrested for going and trying to speak your piece at a school board meeting, you better think about who you're voting for on your ballots, local and national, statewide also. Okay, November 8th, that's the time. And if you do have to use a mail-in ballot or something like that for some odd reason, if you're out of the country, if you're a serviceman and all, be sure to get it in time. Okay? Well, that's my piece right now. So we're going to go back and we're going to start re-examining your lives. What I want to know is reevaluating your life. Where are you now? Because most of my audience is older. And the first thing I want to tell you is Facebook has changed their demographics. There are more people on Facebook now in the baby boomer area than there are people coming up in Gen X, Gen Y, whatever you call these people. And I think it's because there's more of us, and it's a good way for us to communicate. And as I've said before, I communicate with my high school class. And I found many friends I hadn't seen for years and years and years, and found out about reunions. And all of this is part of having your leisure time now and wanting to reconnect with people you admired and loved and wanted to be around when you were growing up and maturing and deciding what you wanted to do in life. And it's fun to see what they're doing, the men and the women, the boys and the girls. It's so much fun. I really appreciate it. Now, I didn't finish college, so I don't belong to any college. I just had it a couple of years for different reasons. And I don't stay with that, but that would be a good way to be engaged and be engaging. You find out all sorts of interesting things. You know, I have one friend that I wasn't even friends with in high school. Actually, I have two now that I see on a regular basis. One of them is so involved with different things still, her university club, she does a lot of help with young women with that one. And the other thing she does, she's actually been on my Dishing with Judith show before, is she and another classmate are keeping a cold case alive with the Orange County Sheriff's Office. And she's fascinating to listen to. So we're going to have her on as a guest too. So that's one thing she has decided to do with her life. And she really is engaged and quite engaged with listening to everything she's doing. The other one was a beauty queen, and we found out that we live in the same area, so we've reconnected. And we only were in one class in high school. I know this may bore you, but it just tickles me. We were in home economics together, and the other night we went out to dinner with each other, and we were dining on these scrumptious short ribs, and I said, wow, this sure beats tuna noodle casserole. And we just got the biggest laugh out of it. I know that's not funny to you, but it is to me, okay? So I don't know how you can engage with your former classmates. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you hated school and you made friends in your first job. Maybe you do charity work now. Maybe you belong to philanthropic groups that just donate and write a check and have big galas, and that is wonderful too. Maybe you support the library. I supported many different organizations through my life, and I always enjoyed it, and I always met spectacular ladies doing it because there was a time when most charity and philanthropic things locally and statewide, which then spread nationally, they were founded in one place and they built up from that. Library associations, our group now has many, many people in it, and ARCS, Achievement Rewards for College Scientists. The founding chapter was in Los Angeles. I'm not that old, but the founding chapter was in Los Angeles, and we've given millions of dollars worth of grants to postgraduate scientists in the STEM program, etc. And that became a national organization. I always like to give a little shout out to these people because they're so fabulous. And I think there's many ways you can stay engaged and engaging as you grow older. So those are just two ways to do it. But what about the health that you need to keep your energy up to be engaged and engaging? Now, maybe you live by yourself now. Maybe you were married, maybe you weren't. Maybe you haven't quite reached the stage of losing your spouse, or maybe you've gotten a divorce. Maybe you just live in different parts of the country now. But you may be by yourself. And I would suggest that you find an interest and you find a volunteer place, unless you need to go back to work. Because we're at an age that perhaps you've found out that your finances aren't as great and as prolific as you would like them to be with your investments now. So I want you to think about retiring, but I want you to think about what you could do if you retire. Before we get into that, it just came into my mind what I did yesterday afternoon, because it's that time of the year for the people that are 65 and older to look at your Medicare payments. Now, many people say don't take your Medicare payments until you're older, until you're in your 70s. I don't know what the actual age is. You have to take it by then. But there's a good reason to take your Social Security earlier, and that is with the way governments are going and the entire world is going, who knows what's going to happen with the government? You don't know that Social Security, even though it was voted to go on for eons, you don't know if it's always going to be there. So I would suggest you take that Social Security payment and you put it someplace that will make money. Now, I'm not here to tell you where to put it, because right now people are losing money in their 401k, they're losing money in their own bank accounts, savings accounts, stock market, everything. But you don't know. And every so often, it's supposed to be geared to the CPI, Consumer Product Index. It's geared to that, and they will give you an automatic raise. This year, people should be happy that are just living on Social Security and maybe a smaller income to help it out, supplement it. the raise to Social Security should be 8.7%, which is quite a bit of money when you're comparing getting zero in your savings account or next to zero. So you might consider that. But besides that, I found out that my husband's Social Security has been changed. Now, this is through a very outstanding teaching university, and they have hooked up with Medicare. But this year, they decided not to have every county in the Los Angeles greater area, which encompasses other counties. Like we live in Ventura County, and UCLA is in Los Angeles County. However, they do have labs and things like that here in Ventura County. But they decided they would no longer take this Medicare plan. So fortunately, I use a Medicare broker, or I should say my husband found them for me, and I just take care of all the paperwork, et cetera, et cetera. So I went down to see him. I like to see people in person. These people are outstanding, and they spend a lot of time with me over all sorts of things besides Medicare. But they were able to switch him over so he does not have to find a new doctor in whenever Medicare open enrollment is. So it's imperative that you go and find out what changes are being made. Your prescription drugs could be going up. You want to look at this. And remember, you put money into this. You put money into Social Security. It's your money. So you want to watch what's happening to it. Okay? So do that, and you'll thank me, hopefully, giving you these little tidbits. So let's get back to health. I've been doing some studying and all, and I always do because, as many of you know, I owned a publishing company that was for health, nutrition, and beauty magazines. So I like integrative health, or whatever you want to call it, complementary. There's a whole bunch of different names for it. But I believe in trying to feed your body and take care of your body before you need to just take care of an illness. We need to get this country to think about longevity, but longevity with health and mental ability. And there are certain things you can do. Everybody knows you're supposed to. What you should be doing in your 50s and okay, here I am. I have been having such a problem with our internet lately. I apologize. I've even had to cancel some shows because of it. And I will say it's Spectrum that used to be Time Warner, and they are the worst, but that's all that we get in this area. I don't usually bash companies, but this one deserves a big bash. Okay, so I'm sorry we lost you there for a minute. And what I was talking about is not everybody addresses the fact that 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, and 70-year-olds and 80-year-olds all need to exercise. And maybe you should stop running marathons when you get to be this age. And maybe you should just take a walk. Walking is easier on your body. It's easier on your knees. It's easier on your hips, your ankles, your feet, your lungs. If you're short of breath and you have a heart condition, do the walking. But you have to get in those 10,000 steps or a couple miles, 3 miles, whatever you want to do. Even if you only walk a mile a day, it helps you. And if you're older, I want you to do one of these things. Take a buddy with you. Wear one of these devices around your neck that calls the paramedics if you need it and alerts everybody, medical alert thing. I don't really know too much about those. I do have one friend whose husband was saved by it, and he was close to 90 years old. So it seems like it does work. And the other thing is almost everybody has a cell phone with them now, and you can have the emergency hooked up to your cell phone, 911, whatever. If you're experiencing shortness of breath, rapid heartbeat, you're just too hot, whatever, you feel like you're going to faint, you have to sit down, call somebody and get help. That's the most important thing. Years ago, my husband and I went to Pritikin, and we've been married 27 years now, and we went the first year we were married. Just because we wanted to tune up our health. We're both healthy and fortunately and blessed. And so we went to Pritikin, and I remember we were walking, this was in Miami back in the day, and it was very close to the beach, and we could walk out and get on the boardwalk. And they gave us each a quarter just in case we needed help. And the quarter was for the phone booth. That's how things have changed in 27 years. So those are some exercises. You know, there's some good books on exercising too if you can't get out, and sitting in a chair, and you can stretch, which is really important before you go walking. You should wear good walking shoes, and that's, you know, Nike, Reebok, Skechers, whatever you want, but wear walking shoes because it's going to make you feel a lot better, and it's sturdier and non-skid. You won't slip. So you need to do those things. And if you're going for too far of a walk, take some water with you. You know, there's all kinds of belts you can fasten around yourself now and hook your water in and what have you. So communication, caution, watch everybody around you. Do it in probably not too isolated of a spot these days. And water, stay hydrated. So those are just some of the things you can do. But you know, if you can still go play pickleball or tennis or swim laps, whatever, swimming is great for you. Exercising in the water is fabulous. The resistance that it gives you, and it helps you kind of float, be buoyant, and it's easier to exercise. But it can, if you swim the laps or you do the exercises in the pool, still get your heart rate up there. So it works, and it stretches your lungs as you breathe in also. If you're lucky enough to do that, that's really great. But I would advise you, this is from our trip to Mexico last month with my daughter and her family. We went to some beaches down in Baja, California. And we're used to the surf out here in California and Florida, where they basically don't even have any surf. You can walk out for miles and look at the reefs and everything. But we went down there and we weren't familiar with it, and we went out surfing. And I will tell you, we all had a very difficult time getting back in due to the rip current and the strength of the waves. And these were only like a foot wave. So it's different everywhere in the ocean. Lakes, you can sink your feet into them in the mud. Be careful where you're going. There's nothing like being out in nature on the beach, and whether it's a lake or stream or the ocean, but be careful, because as you age, you do lose some muscle strength. So I want you to be aware of that. Now I want to skip over to our diet again. We talked about supplements last week, and I want to talk a little bit about food, because I know you guys all know what to eat. But I do want to tell you that they're telling us more and more about brain health, because a lot of us are concerned about short-term memory and remembering people's names, remembering who you were looking up to call, all sorts of things, what you went into the kitchen for. So I was looking up some brain power, and I think you all know this, but I just want to review it with you. green vegetables. And not all green vegetables are the same. They have vitamin K, lutein, folate, and beta carotene. These are the best ones. Such kale. I can't stand kale. Oh, that was a terrible fad that was going on. I think kale is terrible. But I like spinach. I like collard greens if you do them the right way, which is boil them forever. And that's kind of like rapini, which is sort of a cousin or brother to broccoli. Rapini is leafier with kind of like little buds on it, like broccoli. And it's also a bitter thing, and you have to boil it and then saute it with garlic and olive oil and all sorts of things like that. But I love that too. But it's getting extremely difficult to find it in California, and I'm not quite sure why. At any rate, you want to eat those, and the Mediterranean diet is really good for you. It's been proven that it's the best for your brain health as you age and just for your entire body as you age. Fatty foods, like fatty fish, rather. Fish, salmon, that's very high in omega-3, and tuna. But be careful of the tuna. Now they're much better than they used to be. There's not so much mercury in canned tuna as there used to be, and a lot of it is freshwater fished and canned right away. It's out. I would not eat anything that is farm raised if it swims. None of it. Those farms, the water gets to be very filthy, and who knows what's lurking in it. I subscribe for us to what I have found, and no, they're not paying me. You don't see an ad for it, and I don't talk about it all the time. But we subscribe to wild Alaskan fish, and it's fished in the cold, cold waters of Alaska. Now, it is a little expensive, but it's pure, and it's flash frozen in these wonderful individual servings, so you don't have to worry about that. It comes in 6-ounce packages, and it's salmon and halibut and rockfish and all sorts of wonderful things. So check that out, Wild Alaskan Seafood. That is good. We don't eat a lot of red meat anymore. We used to eat red meat, but we ate, and we still like a steak once in a while, something like that, and a pork chop. I'm not telling you have to take everything out of your diet. We've even been known to eat bacon of all things, eating bacon, and we eat it once every 6 months, maybe. That's not going to hurt you, okay? Eating it once is not going to hurt you. I saw an ad on something the other day that for some doctor that said, if you eat this, and it was a breakfast sandwich. Well, if you continually eat them from McDonald's or someplace, yes, it probably will hurt you. But if you're at home and doing it with a nice piece of bacon, Canadian bacon, a poached egg on it, something like that, on a clean, maybe you want to bake your own biscuits like I do, or even a nice English muffin. It's not going to hurt you to have it once in a while. Let's get off this thing that you can't eat anything, or you decide to eat walnuts, which are really good for you, but they're also fattening. So let's not do that. Let's get back to this Mediterranean diet, which also includes fruits. And the very best thing to eat in fruits are blueberries and strawberries. Now, there's 2 things that have come up lately that some of these doctors and sites are telling you. Don't eat eggs and don't eat bananas. I'm here to tell you everything in moderation. Blueberries and strawberries are the greatest. But do you want to pay how much it is now for a pint of strawberries or blueberries? $7? That's crazy. Go to the frozen food, flash frozen foods. Those are lower in cost, and they're just as healthy for you. I don't prescribe to this nonsense that you can't eat eggs. They're high in protein. They're lower in cost than other proteins, but they're 40% higher than they used to be a couple months ago, as everything is. But if you don't eat 10 eggs a day, you're not going to get higher cholesterol. It's just ridiculous. Do you remember the fight they had over milk not too many years ago? Don't drink milk. Well, milk is good for growing kids and anybody who likes to have a glass occasionally. Some people are lactose intolerant, so don't drink it or get lactate free. Let's do everything in moderation. And tea and coffee are perfect. Look at how long people in Japan live and they drink nothing but tea. Same in China. Then look at the people in Italy, France, Mexico, South America. They exist on coffee. And it's now saying that caffeine, at least 1 cup of caffeine a day, and tea does have caffeine in it, by the way, is good for you and good for your brain power. So those are my suggestions. And the other food I want to talk about today is one more thing. Avocados with their good oil, avocado oil in the avocado, is really good for your brain. Well, it is good for your brain, but it's really good for your heart because it's not one of these really bad fats. So it has in it, I just want to tell you what 1/3 of a medium-sized avocado delivers 10% of the recommended daily values of folate, vitamin K, copper 15%, vitamin B5, and a good dose of vitamin C, E, niacin, riboflavin, mineral zinc, magnesium, and manganese. So I just want to tell you that including a whole avocado is only 200 to 300 calories, depending on the side, and you could substitute it for things that are going to cause your cholesterol to go up. You know what's really good for you is an egg and an avocado. That's perfect for you. It could be your breakfast. It could be your lunch. Okay, I want to tell you that I got that information from Dr. Oz and Dr. Roizen, MDs. You know Dr. Oz, he had that program on television forever, and he got into all sorts of health things, alternative things, as well as allopathic health. So he's a good one to look at for that. And that was not a paid political statement. I'm talking about his medical career. My husband and I actually went to hear him talk one time in Chicago. And he's a wonderful speaker, but he was showing us what happens to lungs. Now, this was a breakfast seminar that we went to. And they served us, I think it was something like granola. And I can't remember, but it was good. But he was talking while we were eating, and he was talking about lung cancer and the effects of smoking. And I hope my husband's not listening. But he did, during breakfast, pass around this lung that had been preserved, of course, that had the devastation that smoking does to your lungs. And it was totally black and hard. It was horrible. But some people are addicted. And I have to tell you, in Europe and South America and Central America and different places like that, and China and all, people smoke all the time. So I think your diet is particularly important if you do smoke. Now they're talking about marijuana now, so that's up to you and what you think about it, but it doesn't do to your lungs what smoking does to your lungs. I'm not encouraging you to smoke marijuana or take drugs or anything else. I'm just giving you information. Okay, so, while you're taking your walk, I said take something to notify somebody if you need help. But on your phone, your watch, all sorts of things. And there's a new one, a ring that comes out, a ring that's about as big as my wedding ring, that will track all of your things, your heart rate, your blood pressure, how far you've walked. And you just slip it on. You can leave it on your hand all the time, and it's waterproof to a certain level. So that's something new I'm going to check into. It kind of looks like a piece of fashion jewelry. So that's going to be really interesting to see how people like that. Tracking your health. It kind of encourages you. I think it's fun. So let's talk about your finances for a little bit. We're trying to get you reorganized in your life and think about the goals that you were setting when you were in high school and college, or maybe even younger. Have you attained them financially, emotionally? Have you set goals to go climb Half Dome in Yosemite? I do know two people, ladies in my class, that went and hiked and climbed these places in Yosemite. And they weren't spring chickens when they did it. They both trained. They don't live in the same area. They both trained and got together and went and did it. That just impresses me so much. So do you have goals like that? Do you have some kind of business that you wanted to get into, but you didn't because somebody told you to go do something different, or you had to go to work and you had to take a job that was going to pay for your kids and yourself and everything else, and you had no formal training? Or maybe you had a creative idea and you just needed to go work someplace else and you couldn't get it. Maybe you always wanted to paint desert sunsets, flowers, women. I know people who've started painting at an advanced age. My great-grandmother painted a painting. She was kind of like a Grandma Moses, and she did that in her 90s, and she lived to be over 100. In her 90s, she started doing it, and she could actually sell paintings. So that was kind of fun for her. So you could do that, but a lot of you could write books about lessons you've learned, fond memories you've had. You could write a memoir to give to your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. You know, my first husband had an aunt, a great aunt, who came across in a covered wagon, came across the United States in a covered wagon, and she lived to see the first man on the moon. And there's no written history of it to tell my children, who would be great-great nephews and granddaughter, not nieces. So I need to eat an avocado. People should write down their history. It doesn't matter if you came from a family of 7 people or 2 people or 1. You all have a history. And if you have offspring or friends that are interested in it, you should write it down. I have been encouraging people to do this, and there's lots of new publishing companies out there where they can give you editors, they can help you design a cover for the book, they can publish it, they can market it. I have a friend in Pittsburgh who was a decorator, and a wonderful decorator. I don't think she does any decorating right now, but she decorated our apartment in Pittsburgh and got it published in a magazine, which was kind of fun. I've never done that in California. It was fun. It was a different experience. So she sat down. She's always wanted to be a writer, and I had her audition with Judith. And you can look her up. Her name is Janet Brianza, J.R. Brianza. She writes under. And you can hear the interviews, and you can buy her books on Amazon still. And they're really exciting. It's a whole genre I never knew about, and I didn't really know she was interested in. And it's kind of like sci-fi, but it's fascinating. One is on Hiroshima and what might have happened going on. That was I guess it was a necessity in the war. I wasn't around, but it was also very tragic. So anyway, she has taken that and she's written many more, and she's writing one now, but not in the same genre. So there are people who do that, and I've interviewed quite a few of them. But as I say, I will be starting a website, and it will be geared towards 50 and 60-year-olds, 50, 60, 70, and 80-year-olds. Now, remember, maybe I haven't told you this yet, but Facebook now has so many baby boomers on it that they've almost taken over Facebook. So people are saying, oh, I'm so young, I'm 20, I'm in my 25, 30, I don't use Facebook anymore. But it's an easy thing for people to learn of a certain age, and you should check it out. And my site is going to be called Golden Years, Golden Fears. And I'm going to address things like we do on the show here, Judith Mancini Today, and see if we can't get you excited about your next part of life. I know you're all thinking about, how long am I going to live? What should I do? How can I tell my kids, my grandkids, I want to stay healthy? What about my relationships with my older kids? All sorts of things. And next week, I'm going to talk about, this is really strange, sunglasses and polycarbonate lenses, which is been going on for quite a while, but I didn't know about them. I had no reason to. I order my sunglasses from designers. But I understand you can get those redone with polycarbonate. These are the things that are in kids' sunglasses so they don't shatter, and astronaut helmets. We're going to talk about that and how important they are to have those in your glasses. These happen to be like that, but you don't have to spend a ton of money on all of these glasses. There's wonderful online places to buy readers because our eyesight goes for close-up or distance, anything. So you can go to someplace like that. You can even test your vision on it, or you can go to different ophthalmologists and optometrists and go that route, or get your Chanel sunglasses from Neiman Marcus that you can get them fixed. So I want to explain all that because I never paid attention to it before. And even my daughter made sure to have her kids, her 8-year-old and 4-year-old, when we went to Mexico, she got them sunglasses like that. So it's very important, okay? We're going to talk about that. Now it's time for me to say goodbye. I want to remind you that you need to vote on November 8th. Don't forget that. Stay safe out there and remember these words. Cherish yesterday, dream tomorrow, and live today. Thank you so much for joining us.